Welcome in, everybody, to JAKIB Draft Special. We are back live on day 3. A very Howie Roseman-esque round 4, Johnny Mac. They started the day with 3 picks in the 4th round, ended up only taking 1 player, but they added 3 picks in next year's draft, a 2025 third, a 2025 fourth, and a 2025 fifth, as well as a litany of, it seems like, some picks later on in today, 164 and number 201. But anyway, they get running back Will Shipley out of Clemson. Let me get your first reaction, first takes on what he brings to this offense. Seems to be a versatile running back out of Clemson, and they finally go offense in the 4th pick of the draft.
Yeah, finally get an offensive player. They needed some depth at running back, and the assumption was they were going to add one in day 3, and they get Will Shipley. It's sort of an Eagles-like running back. He's got some receiving ability. They always like that to be enmeshed. I've always said I'd like to see sort of a one-cut big back behind this great offensive line, but the Eagles just don't seem to believe in that. And Will Shipley's more of a traditional Eagles thought process when it comes to the running back. Got hurt in the Gator Bowl, had a left knee injury. Didn't do much at the combine, but was able to get back to his pro day, and I think he ran a 4.45. So I think that comforted some people down. A little bit inconsistent, too many drops, but you're talking about the day 3, and they needed to add some depth behind Saquon Barkley and Kenny Gainwell. Boston Scott's still a free agent. This might signal the end of his tenure. He's been a very popular player, very good utility man over the years, and obviously that'll be, if that turns out to be the case, the New York Giants will probably be the happiest about that. But behind Saquon and Kenny Gainwell, all you had was a couple futures contract players and Ty Davis Price and Lou Nichols. So Will Shipley will be penciled in as that 3rd running back right now, and I think it's a pretty good value pick. But you mentioned to me the bigger news is getting a 3rd, a 4th, and a 5th in the 2025 draft and manipulating, because people listen to us here and listen to Birds 365 know, the market inefficiency the Eagles believe they have with future picks. And a lot of teams don't value them as much as they should. The old school thinking is that a future pick isn't worth as much as a current pick in the current draft, and that's just silly. And the Eagles have been on that bandwagon for a lot of years, and it's another example of Howie being able to think about the future, and maybe other GMs can't think about the future. That's the positive. Now, the negative is, there's a couple, you think about right before, this has been a theme of this draft, has been Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh, I think, is interesting because Andy Weidl's in Pittsburgh, and nobody knows the Eagles better than Andy Weidl. And at 119, right before the Eagles were set to take their first pick, they take Mason McCormick, who was South Dakota State offensive guard. Maybe that's the guy the Eagles were focused on. Not 100%, but and they immediately trade out of 120. And then Detroit later took the kid from British Columbia right before the Eagles were selected to pick offensive lineman. And, that struck me as Brad Holmes clearly thinking the Eagles were going to take him. And that's a Jeff Stoutland project pick. Maybe that was one of the deals, and Brad Holmes was going up to get it. So there's a potential that other teams sort of shifted the Eagles' thinking. Now, Howie's not going to admit that right now, but certainly that's something to throw in the gristle, the mill, so to speak, because it's potentially others, shifting the Eagles and going in a different direction. But overall, day 3 of this draft was thought to be kind of weak, to be honest, in getting future picks. where maybe it's a little bit deeper is not the worst way to go. But I do think you should note that potentially there are a couple offensive linemen. And certainly from Detroit's perspective, they thought the Eagles were going to take that player. That's why they jumped ahead of them and drafted the kid from, you might have the name in front of you, I forget, the British Columbia tackle, if you have it in front of you.
I don't have it in front of me. I can pull it up.
Yeah. But that's a player clearly Brad Holmes thought the Eagles were going to take.
Is it Giovanni Manu?
Yes, Giovanni Manu, offensive tackle, British Columbia offensive tackle. Clearly the Lions thought the Eagles were going to take him. Could be wrong, but they thought it.
Yeah, and I kind of like Howie's shaking and baking here. As you said, a lot of people talk about how weak day 3 was this year. And John, how much does, they know they have a penalty coming for the Saquon Barkley signing. Do you think they're kind of slacking,
not necessarily. The Eagles are under tampering investigation.
Right. Doesn't mean they're getting penalized.
No, it's not as clear cut as Atlanta. Atlanta's probably going to get banged because Kirk Cousins went in his opening press conference and said he was talking to Atlanta people before he could talk to Atlanta people. So that one's pretty clear cut. In the Eagles case, it was James Franklin saying Saquon Barkley told him something, and that's more of a hearsay type situation.
Yeah, right.
So the Eagles are not necessarily going to get banged. Now, there's also the Vic Fangio aspect where a lot of people around the league think it's pretty clear the Eagles were tampering there. So I do think they might get dinged a little bit because teams were complaining. Other organizations were complaining a little bit. So we'll see. But it's not 100% that they're going to get penalized for tampering.
Now they're up to 11 picks in next year's draft. So if that's a better draft at all, though, these do look like they will be good trades. John, how do you evaluate where they took that player? There's some people like him. I know you mentioned there's a lot of drops. He's a good screen back, but he does have drops and fumbles. And then there was a couple other running backs on the board. Even Jets they grabbed Braylon Allen right after the Eagles selected. What do you think of the pick there? Do you think it was the right guy, or how do you evaluate that?
Yeah, I think the Eagles are too obsessed with the receiving aspect of the position, especially when it comes to backups. Like, I get it with Saquon, you want that presence. I get it with your lead back, but sometimes it's better to piecemeal the other stuff.
The reason I don't get it is because they have such great receivers, and Jalen Hurts doesn't like dumping it off to running backs.
I talked to that a lot. I talked about that. And Kenny Gainwell's got that presence, and they already had Kenny Gainwell, and they already had DeAndre Swift, and they didn't utilize it. So, I prefer the big, and I've been saying it for a long time, I want to see a big one-cut north-south back who just goes bang and hits the hole with this, because the holes are often there with this offensive line. And hey, the Eagles value the receiving aspect of it, and they're not going to come off that. And that's what Will Shipley is. But he's going to jump on a conference call, Zander. So I got to get
all right. Sounds good.
Here.
All right, Johnny Mac, thanks. We'll do a recap on the full day 3 at the end of it. So we'll touch base with you again after round 5.
All right, thanks, bud.
Thanks, Johnny Mac. There's John McMullen live down. He's down at the NovaCare complex as this draft day unfolds. It's a tough team to cover on draft day because Howie Roseman shakes and bakes, and he trades up and he trades down, and you never really know when they're going to pick, and it makes it tough to get a handle on it and at least to give an instant reaction when they're moving so much. But I have no problem with the trade outs. I don't think this is a great day 3. Not a ton of good prospects, but I will say I didn't love the pick. I thought there were some better players available. Even taking a flyer on a guy like Trotter Jr. I know he's not the type of linebacker John said that the Eagles are looking for, but I just don't love dipping into that small, undersized running back category again. But that's what they did. Howie Roseman moved all around that draft. He moved down. He acquired 3 picks in next year's draft, which I do think will be a win. He got a 2025 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounder. So they added 3 picks in next year's draft, which is pretty good stuff. Shout out to my man Twiz, reminding everybody to hit the like button. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We're going to be live again after the 5th round. Now they have, I want to say 3 picks, but I believe they added another. So 4 picks now slated, scheduled in round 5 here, but I don't know how many they're going to end up taking. So me and John will wait it out. We'll wait for the end of the round. We'll go live again to react to round 5 of the NFL draft, see what Howie does here. I got a feeling that more trades are coming. He might look to acquire even more picks next year. So we'll see how it all breaks. But thanks everybody for tuning in to the JAKIB Draft Special, brought to you by IBEW Local 98. Thanks to our great partners over at IBEW Local 98. We will catch you guys on the next live stream coming up right after round 5. And then stay tuned later on today when the whole draft concludes. Johnny Mac and I will go on a full day 3 recap. We'll dive into the trades, the picks, the players, the wins, the losses of the day, and much more. So thanks everybody for tuning in, locking with us after round 5, and then again on the recap later on tonight. Thanks everybody. See you next time.